I found out my wife of 5 years had been lying about her entire past. When I confronted her, she begged me to stay. After our divorce, I learned the real reason she changed her identity, and it left me speechless. I've been married to Selena, 30F, for 5 years now. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue 7 years ago. It was a warm summer evening, and I remember being immediately drawn to her laugh. She had this infectious smile that lit up her whole face. We got talking about our favorite books and movies, and before I knew it, hours had passed. Selena told me she was a nurse at the local hospital, having just finished her degree a year prior. I was impressed by her dedication to helping others. I shared that I worked in marketing, specifically in digital advertising. We found we had a lot in common. Both of us loved hiking, trying new restaurants, and were big dog people. We started dating soon after that barbecue. Our first date was at a cozy Italian restaurant downtown. I remember being nervous, but Selena put me at ease with her easygoing nature. We talked for hours about our families, our dreams for the future, and our past experiences. Selena told me she grew up in a small town in Ohio, the middle child of 3. Her parents were both teachers, and she spoke fondly of her childhood, describing idyllic summers spent at her grandparents' farm and winters ice skating on the local pond. She said she'd always wanted to be a nurse, inspired by an aunt who worked in pediatrics. I shared my own background, growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, only child to a single mom who worked as an accountant. I told Selena about my college years studying business, and how I'd moved to our current city for my first job out of school. As our relationship progressed, I found myself falling deeply in love with Selena. She was kind, funny, and seemed to genuinely care about others. We had our share of disagreements, like any couple, but we always managed to work through them with open communication. After a year of dating, I proposed. It wasn't anything flashy, just a quiet moment at home after I'd cooked her favorite meal. Selena cried happy tears as she said yes. We got married a year later in a small ceremony with close friends and family. The first few years of our marriage were wonderful. We bought a house together, a cozy 3-bedroom in a nice neighborhood. We talked about starting a family soon, agreeing we both wanted 2 or 3 kids. Selena continued her work as a nurse, often sharing touching stories about her patients. I climbed the ranks at my marketing firm, eventually becoming a senior account manager. We had our challenges, of course. Selena worked long hours and often had to do night shifts. I traveled occasionally for work. But we always made time for each other, scheduling regular date nights and weekend getaways. Everything was going well until about a month ago. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was cleaning out our home office. We'd been talking about turning it into a nursery, so I was going through old papers and documents to organize things. In the back of a filing cabinet, I found a folder I'd never seen before. Curious, I opened it up and found a bunch of Selena's old records and documents from before we met. As I flipped through the papers, a few things jumped out at me that didn't add up. There was a high school diploma and transcripts from a school in Florida, but Selena had always told me she grew up in Ohio. There were also some old pay stubs and tax forms listing jobs she'd never mentioned having. The strangest thing was a marriage certificate I found, dated 8 years ago, 3 years before Selena and I even met. It showed she had been married to some guy named Michael for a brief time. Selena had always told me I was her first and only husband. I sat there for a long time, staring at these documents, trying to make sense of them. Had there been some mix-up? Was I misunderstanding something? But the more I looked, the clearer it became that something wasn't right. I thought back to all the stories Selena had told me about her childhood in Ohio, her nursing school experiences, her family. Had it all been lies? I couldn't wrap my head around it. Part of me wanted to confront Selena immediately, but I decided to do some digging first to see what else I could find out. Over the next couple weeks, I discreetly looked into Selena's background more. I started by searching online records. I looked up the high school in Florida listed on the transcript I'd found. Sure enough, there was a yearbook photo of Selena, or someone who looked exactly like her, from the graduating class 12 years ago. I searched for records in Ohio and found nothing matching the stories Selena had told me. No property records for her parents, no local news articles mentioning her or her family, nothing. I looked Selena up on social media, creating a fake profile to see what I could find. Her own profiles only went back to about a year before we met. But I found some old photos on other people's profiles that showed Selena in Florida, at beaches and theme parks, years before she supposedly moved away from Ohio. I even hired a private investigator to do some digging. What he uncovered was shocking. It turns out almost everything Selena had told me about her past was a lie. She wasn't from Ohio, she grew up in Florida. She didn't go to nursing school right after high school like she claimed. Instead, she bounced around between a bunch of different jobs for several years, waitressing, retail, even a stint as a real estate agent. And she had been married before, for about 6 months when she was 22. The investigator found divorce records showing it had ended due to irreconcilable differences. The craziest part was that Selena wasn't even her real name. Her birth certificate showed her name was actually Jessica Miller. She had legally changed it to Selena Johnson, her current name, about a year before we met. I was reeling from all of this information. The woman I married, the person I thought I knew better than anyone, had been lying to me about virtually her entire life before we met. I felt betrayed, angry, and completely lost. I thought back to all the moments we'd shared over the years. Our first date, our wedding day, buying our house together. Had it all been built on a foundation of lies? How could someone maintain such an elaborate deception for so long? I knew I needed to confront Selena about all of this, but I was terrified of how that conversation would go. Would she deny it? Try to explain it away somehow? I had no idea what to expect. After agonizing over it for days, I finally decided I had to say something. I couldn't keep living this lie. So one night after dinner, I sat Selena down and told her we needed to talk. I pulled out the folder of documents I'd found and laid it all out on the table. Selena's face changed when she saw the papers. She started trying to come up with excuses, but I cut her off. I told her I knew everything, about Florida, her previous marriage, her name change, all of it. I demanded to know why she had lied about her entire past. Selena started crying. She told me that she had a rough childhood and made a lot of mistakes in her early 20s. Her parents were neglectful and sometimes abusive. She left home at 18 and struggled to make ends meet, taking whatever job she could find. She got married young to a man who turned out to be controlling and manipulative. She said she was ashamed of her past and wanted a fresh start, so she changed her name and moved to a new city to reinvent herself. When we met, she was afraid to tell me the truth, worried I wouldn't want to be with her if I knew about her past. So she made up a whole new backstory and stuck with it. I listened to her explanation, trying to process it all. While I could understand wanting a fresh start to some degree, I couldn't fathom lying to your spouse about literally everything. I told Selena I needed some time to process all of this. I packed a bag and went to stay with my brother for a few days to clear my head. It's been about a week now and I still don't know what to do. On one hand, I love Selena and we've built a life together. I think about all the good times we've had, all the plans we've made for the future. Is it worth throwing all of that away? But on the other hand, how can I ever trust her again after such massive deception? Every time she tells me anything now, I'll wonder if it's true. And what else might she be hiding? I'm not sure our relationship can recover from this. I'm seriously considering divorce, but it's tearing me apart inside. I guess I'm looking for advice on how to move forward from here. Has anyone dealt with anything similar? Is there any coming back from a betrayal like this? Or am I better off cutting my losses and starting over? I'm completely lost and any insight would be appreciated. Update 1. It's been about a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. I wanted to give an update on the situation with my wife Selena, or I guess I should say Jessica. After spending a few days at my brother's place to clear my head, I went back home to have another conversation with Selena. When I arrived, I found her sitting on the couch, looking like she hadn't slept in days. She started to apologize again, but I held up a hand to stop her. I told her that while I understood her desire for a fresh start, I couldn't get past the massive breach of trust. Lying about her entire past and identity was just too much. I explained that trust is the foundation of any relationship, and she had completely shattered that foundation. I told Selena I wanted a trial separation while I figured out if I could move past this. She was upset but agreed it was probably for the best. So for the past month, I've been staying at a nearby extended stay hotel while Selena remained in our house. During this time apart, I've done a lot of thinking and soul searching. I've replayed our entire relationship in my mind, trying to spot any signs I might have missed. I've wondered if there were times she almost told me the truth, or if she ever felt guilty about the deception. I've also had some long conversations with close friends and family about the situation. My brother, who I'm very close with, was furious when I told him everything. He said Selena, or Jessica, was manipulative and I should leave her immediately. My best friend since college had a more measured response. He pointed out that while the lying was inexcusable, Selena's actions since I confronted her suggested genuine remorse. He encouraged me to at least consider couples counseling before making any final decisions. My mom, always the voice of reason, encouraged me to take my time and not rush into any decisions. She reminded me that all relationships face challenges, though she agreed this was a particularly big one. I even reached out to a therapist to help me process everything. In our sessions, we've talked a lot about trust, forgiveness, and what I really want out of a relationship. The therapist has encouraged me to think about whether I could ever fully trust Selena again, even if she was completely honest from this point forward. The general consensus from most people is that this level of deception is pretty much unforgivable. My brother pointed out that if Selena was willing to lie about literally everything in her past, how could I ever trust anything she says going forward? My best friend said that even if I somehow got past this, I'd always have doubts in the back of my mind about what else she might be hiding. Selena and I have had a few conversations during this separation period. She's been respecting my need for space, but has made it clear she wants to try to work things out. She's offered to go to couples counseling, to introduce me to people from her past, to do whatever it takes to rebuild trust. Part of me is tempted to try. I think about the good times we've had, the life we've built together. I remember how she took care of me when I had that bad bout of flu last year, staying up all night to make sure I was okay. I think about how supportive she's been of my career, always encouraging me to go after promotions and new opportunities. But then I remember the lies. I think about how every story she ever told me about her childhood was fabricated. I think about the previous marriage she hid from me. I think about how she let me believe I was introducing her to sushi for the first time, when she had actually lived in Japan for a year after high school, another fact the private investigator uncovered. The more I thought about it, the more I realized they were right. Even if Selena was truly remorseful and never lied again, I don't think I could ever fully trust her. That's no way to live in a marriage. So last week, I met up with Selena and told her I wanted a divorce. We met at a coffee shop, neutral ground. When I told her my decision, she broke down crying and begged me to reconsider, saying she'd do anything to make it right. She talked about how much she loved me, how the years with me had been the happiest of her life. For a moment, I almost wavered. But then I remembered all the lies, all the deception. I stood firm. I explained that while I cared for her, I couldn't continue in a relationship without trust. I told her I hoped she could work through her issues and find happiness, but it couldn't be with me. I've already spoken to a divorce lawyer to start the process. Since we don't have kids and have only been married 5 years, it should be a relatively straightforward divorce. We'll have to sell the house and split the assets, but that's manageable. The hardest part has been grieving the future I thought we were going to have together. We had talked about having kids soon, growing old together, all of that. It's painful to let go of those dreams. But I know deep down this is the right decision for me. I'm trying to focus on moving forward now. I'm throwing myself into work, spending time with friends and family, and thinking about what I want the next chapter of my life to look like. It's scary to be starting over at 32, but also somewhat exciting to have a blank slate. I've started looking for my own apartment. I'm thinking about taking some classes at the local community college, maybe learn a new skill or hobby. I'm even considering asking for a transfer at work. A fresh start in a new city might be just what I need. I appreciate all the advice and support from my original post. It really helped me gain perspective and ultimately make this difficult decision. I'll post another update once the divorce is finalized and I'm starting my new life. Wish me luck. Update 2. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some new developments in my situation. The divorce from Selena, Jessica, was finalized about 2 months ago. It ended up being pretty amicable, all things considered. We were able to agree on how to split our assets without too much conflict. We sold the house and divided the proceeds. Selena kept her car and I kept mine. We each took our own personal belongings and split the furniture and household items. The day we signed the final divorce papers was difficult.